Now how we get the average per category, we're going to come over here and select all of our trial categories, and I'm going to paste it by this static numeric section. Now I have all of my trials lined up with my standardized values. Now if you have any blank spots, this next step won't work, so make sure that you don't have any blank cells, and anything that you've removed because there was no startle probe, make sure there's an X. Now what we're going to do is we're going to highlight all of these trials, and we're going to sort these trials, sort A to Z, and it should put all of our categories in the right section. Looks like it didn't take the X or the C category and put it in the right place, but we can just bring it down here and replace it later. Let's go ahead and bring this down one, take our C, which is an X, so it doesn't really matter. The rest of this is lined up appropriately. In the next step, what we're going to do is get an average for our A, our B, our C, and our D, which is our positive, it is our negative, and our neutral, and, sorry, E, which is our alcohol. Now to create the average, just like we did before, we hit equal sign, average, open parentheses, and we're going to select all of our A's, close parentheses. For the negative, which is the B, we're going to go equals, average, open parentheses, select, close parentheses, our neutral equals average, copy our neutral or select them, close parentheses, and our alcohol, average, category E, close parentheses. Now we have all of our values that are standardized, and this next step you don't need to do at this point, but I'm going to show you how they look. And we need to as a next step, what we're going to do is we're going to take this mean and standard deviation, and we're going to adjust each one of our experimental periods to create a z-score transformation within each individual. So how we're going to do that is we're going to click over where our data starts, trial 1. We're going to go equals, and we have to create an equation here. We're going to equal F, so that's our column, 11, oops, 12, and of course this is an X, but I'm going to keep it consistent. We're going to go F12 and we're going to go, so the equation for z-score transformation is x minus x bar over standard deviation. So that means we're going to go F12 minus F61. Now we want to keep this consistent, and how we keep the location from changing with the mean of standard deviation is we use in Excel a money sign. So we're going to go equals money sign F, money sign 61. Now when we pull this down, it's going to stay the same after we start dropping and transforming different rows. Now we still have to do our over the standard deviation. So we're going to close that parentheses, say over, and we're going to go money sign for the standard deviation, F, money sign 62, so it's the next one over, close parentheses, and we can see that we need to adjust this slightly. We need to add one more bracket, one more set of parentheses at the beginning and at the end. Now that should allow us to do a calculation of our actual value minus our mean, which is staying the same, close parentheses, over our standard deviation, which is again staying the same. Now this first one, it's not going to give us a value because it's trying to calculate it on X, but we can go down to the bottom right, create a black cross, click and drag, and this should give us all of our standardized values. So now we have the standardized values. Of course we need to get rid of our values that are represented by X's. So we can quickly just come through, take up all of our value or the X points, and we can replace them with an X. Now these are all occurring in real time, so it's still a formula even though it's showing you a value. To double check and make sure that we did this stabilization with the mean and standard deviation correctly, we can click on one of them. We can see yes, it's highlighting, it's changing to the appropriate row, but is keeping it on the mean and standard deviation, so that looks good. Now all of these are occurring in real time, so we're going to cut and paste them and make them static values. So we're going to right click, we copied all this, we're going to right click and we're going to paste, but paste as numbers. So now it's not a formula, it's just the actual numeric value. And the next step is going to be to drag over our categories and to start to get an average per category. So in order to do a z-score transformation, the first thing we need to do is get the mean and standard deviation within for each individual. So we're going to go down this green column, and so that we remember, we can say mean, standard deviation. Now in Excel, how we create or get a mean is first we're going to calculate, we're going to put an equal sign, put in average, open parentheses, and we're going to select all the data that we want to create an average from. We're not going to go into the habituation trials, we just care about the experimental trials. So we'll start here with the experimental trials, go down, select all of our data, close parentheses. Now we've got our mean for all the trials, the experimental trials. We want the standard deviation, so we're going to go equals STDEV, open parentheses, select all of our experimental data, our trials, close parentheses. Now we can see that the X's were included, but they're not actually representing any data. So when I delete some of these X's, we can see that the values for this automatic mean and standard deviation don't change. Whereas if I were to delete a data section, you can see that the data now changes in real time. Okay, this video is going to show you how to do the calculations for the categories within our trials. Now, the important part to remember is this first column that we have collected is the time period. We have our maximum, our minimum. In the previous video we talked about how we reject certain trials. Now this calculate column is our column of interest, so I'm actually going to highlight this a different color so that I know and I remember which trial I'm actually calculating, or which column. Now the important thing to remember is that with affective modulation of startle, everyone's tonic level of startle is slightly different, so we need to do a z-score transformation within individuals. So this will show you how to z-score transform as a first step. Now the last step is that we're just going to take this z-score transformed data, we'll copy it, open up our sheet that contains our data, and basically it's going to be structured like this. Participant number, and we can say positive, neutral, negative, alcohol. Copy our values. If you want to do it all at once, you just need to invert or transpose. And that should have all of our values, and then when we get do this process with other participants, we'll add a new line, 1002, 1003, and we can begin entering the startle values. Okay, so we've got all of our z-score transformed data, and they're actually active equations, and so if we try to do anything with them, it's going to show us our equation. So the first step is we're going to copy it, and rather than paste it as it is now, we're going to right click and paste as numbers. so it keeps us at the stable number value. Now we need to come over here and get our categories, and we're going to paste them right next to our values. Now we have our values, or our category types, by our type of value, or the value for the trial. We're going to come over here and sort by the particular category type. And this will allow us to average the category type. Alright, now we're going to select the category, sort, let it expand. Now we have all of our categories sorted appropriately. We see that for some reason C didn't sort appropriately, so we're just going to pull it down here, make a little space for C, and then put it in there. Okay, now we've got all of our values and we're ready to create our averaged category z-score transformed value. So our categories are positive, neutral, negative, and alcohol. We're going to come over here and we're going to go equals average, and we're going to select all of our A's, which are our positive category, close parentheses. Now it says value because we have to remove some of the non-digit information here. You can see if we remove the rejected trials for A, we're starting to get a number. For neutral, that is category C, so we go equals average. We go and select all of our C's, close parentheses. We're going to do the same for our category B, which is aversive, close parentheses, and the same for our alcohol, which is category E. Now all we have left to do is to remove the non-value data, the rejected trials. Alright, that should be it. And we've got data for all of our values. If you want to view it graphically, you can select all of these. Click Insert, bring up the columns. Now we can see that there's a little bit of an anomaly with this individual in that she was looking away and closing her eyes for any negative image. So the positive and the neutral are in the expected trend regions. I would have expected negative to be much higher, but she was looking away. And alcohol, you can see, despite sobriety, is still at still a very significant pleasant category. Now we've already reviewed the data to see if there's anything questionable, but the other thing we need to do is to verify that the participant didn't look away or fall asleep during the trials. So what I've done is I've reviewed the video of the trial with the participant, and I saw that for most of the aversive images, the participant was actually cringing and then closing her eyes or looking away. And so for those trials, I've put an R for rejected trial. So now we have an updated rejection of trials. Now, I believe where we left off was creating the z-score transformation. So basically what we're going to do here is first, the z-score transformation formula is x minus x bar divided by standard deviation. So the first thing we're going to do is get the mean for this participant's scores. So we're going to hit equals, average, open parentheses, highlight all of her good data, close parentheses. That'll give us her mean. Then we're going to create a standard deviation, equal sign STDEV, open parentheses, select all of her good data, close parentheses. Now we've got the mean and standard deviation for this participant. What we're going to do is now take the data and z-score transform per part. So how we z-score transform is we're going to go equal sign, we're going to do two parentheses because it's going to have the equation that we're working for. Now we're going to start with F11, which is the first trial. Now, however, it's an X, but I'm going to drag it down and it'll give me the rest of the values. So we're going to go equals parentheses, parentheses, F11, that would be my, 12, which would be X, minus X bar, which is my mean, and down here. Now when I drag, it might change the location. So to keep it stable, what I'm going to do is use a money sign leading. And this is F61. So I'm going to go minus money sign F61, F actually, money sign 61, close parentheses. We're going to divide this by the standard deviation, which is F62. We're going to start with the money sign to keep it stable, F61, F money sign 62. Now when I close this, we should see that it's selecting my mean and standard deviation, and it's going to convert this first score to a standard score from within her own data. Of course it's going to say value because that's an X. We're going to go to the bottom right, it's going to create a black cross, click and drag, and that will create a Z-score based on her own data. And we should see when we click, for example, this last item, it's selecting her last bit of data, Z-score, transforming it to the mean and standard deviation. If we wouldn't have put the money signs for the F61, F62 mean and standard deviation, it would have kept moving that in addition to this particular bit of data.